In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful. First of all, let me welcome you, Ambassador Koch, General Campbell, distinguished special representatives, ambassadors, Minister Rabbani, Minister Ulumi, Deputy Minister Karzai, Ambassador Sarkar, all other colleagues. Let me begin with paying tribute to the sacrifices that your sons and daughters have made in blood. They will be remembered by this nation, and I want to honor every one of them. Those who paid the ultimate sacrifice, those who were wounded, those who would be marked by our valleys, by our deserts, by their memories for ages to come. I would also like to thank you all for the considerable treasure that you've spent in a time when domestic priorities have been important, even urgent, when social programs have had to be cut, even in the most advanced countries. Your financial commitments to us have been important, and on behalf of every Afghan citizen, particularly the women and girls of Afghanistan, I'd like to thank you. It has made a difference. It is continuing to make a difference. Second, I'd like to thank you for sharing with us an understanding of the threats as well as the opportunities. We have a careful balance to understand the threats, but also to think about the opportunities. When we focus on threats, we focus on overcoming the past. When we dwell on the opportunities, we are energized by the future, by the prospects of what this beautiful land can be and what this people who are marked by resilience against adversity can become. This is a shared journey, and we hope that as you've been with us, you will continue to do so. I would also like to thank you for commitment and partnership. At the end of the transition, the security transition, you could have walked away. It was not an imperative, particularly not in your domestic environments, to stay. You stayed because of principle. So I'd like to thank every head of state and government, in particular President Obama, and members of the framework, leaders of the framework nations, and all troop contributing countries to the Resolute Support Mission, and other partners who are helping us face the adversities. This commitment has enabled us to focus on building the future while dealing with the legacy of the past. And simultaneously, I'd like to thank you, and please convey this to every head of state and government. I've said this in person to those I've met, and I'd like you to convey this, that the commitment to partnership, forging of enduring partnerships, where we would shift from dealing with threats to creating the opportunities, is essential. And this is really vital. Let me take this opportunity to do a quick stock taking. First, the context. We deal with the agenda of transformation in a context where the rules of the game are uncertain. The old order, the old global order, with balancers, with rules, with stability of states interacting through the Westphalian system, is not in place. The new order is emerging, but to be caught in a transition between changing world orders is to be both cursed and blessed. And part of the curse I'd like to highlight. First, the ecology of terror is changing. We're dealing with terror as a systematic phenomenon. It's becoming more lethal, it's becoming more organized, it's becoming more resourced. It requires from all of us a common understanding of this. Because without understanding this ecology, we will not be able to fashion the strategies to overcome it. And overcome it, we must. It's a competitive ecology and it's a cooperative ecology. Daesh competes with Al-Qaeda, but they both cooperate in undermining global stability and all the others. Second, we don't have a weak link now in the state system. We have a weakening chain of states. Each time a state in the Middle East or other parts close or far to us collapses, it increases the weakening of the entire chain and it strengthens the ecology of terror. Iraq or Syria are not distant from us. They provide lessons and they provide networks, back and forth. The ecology of terror is not a respecter of boundaries or asking for passports to travel. And when these states are weakening and there is not an alternative vision, it of course affects us. Thirdly, it was fashionable from the 1970s, some earlier, for some states to rely on non-state actors, malign non-state actors as instruments of policy. They relied on this instrument to balance power with more powerful neighbors near or far. But the adverse consequences of this policy, I hope, have become clear. Malign non-state actors cannot be defined between good terrorists and bad terrorists. There are no good terrorists. Terrorism is evil, pure and simple. And we here witness it every day, so if you want to ask for an opinion, ask the maimed children of Afghanistan. And the fourth factor is the reinforcing networks of criminal economics and criminal politics. The global criminal economy is at least $1.7 trillion a year. A lot of financing, it provides the bidding, the platform for these other types of activities. And in turn, the criminal economy seeks ungoverned spaces. They finance ungovernability and instability. So in this context, what do we do to respond to this? Our vision of ourselves is Afghanistan as a platform of cooperation. First of all, and I'll come back to this, the war that we are fighting is on behalf of everyone in this room. This is not our war alone. It's a conflict that is being fought on behalf of the future generations and on behalf of regional and global stability. Our circles vary quickly. Neighbors: India to Azerbaijan, Russia to Turkey. We are in a circle. In this neighborhood must arrive at stable rules of the game. Without stable rules of the game, where states recognize each other's sovereignty and simultaneously share in cooperation to bring about a stable system of cooperation, the problems cannot be solved nationally. Some of our fundamental challenges are regional. Today, terrorists threatening China, India, Russia, Iran, all of you round the table, I cannot count because I'd be going on counting for 5 minutes, focus on us. So therefore, we need a collective sense of purpose. This will not come overnight, but in the next 10 years, we must work towards this goal. Second, the Arab Islamic Circle. Islam is our guiding principle. We are 99.9% Muslim in this country. Our constitution is guided by these principles, as well as the principles of human rights in constitutional law. The negative impact has been enormous because we've had the spillover or the displacement effect. Now we want to cooperate, and our outreach has been very significant to establish a common platform against terrorism. The declaration from Mecca some months ago, from the holy city of Mecca, against terror is a very, very significant statement. And the principles that have been articulated and the analysis of the root causes are hopeful signs that we are no longer in denial. Here, the key question is, who speaks for Islam? Elected leaders who have been elected by women who've braved the cutting of their fingers and voted, or a minority relying on terror. We must stand out to be counted. And that, I think, Afghanistan offers, despite all our problems, immense possibilities. Our third circle, which have been partnering with us with blood and treasure, the United States and Canada, Europe, Japan, Australia, NATO, the Resolute Support Mission, and others providing security assistance. A very big thank you to all of you. Geographically distant, emotionally close. And General Campbell, in particular, I'd like to thank you for the partnership in your leadership. Our fifth circle is trade, investment, and aid. I want to put it in that order. First and foremost, our prosperity is going to depend on trade. Every one of our neighbors can do a lot more for us and for themselves by agreeing to equitable trade patterns and focusing on those than billions of dollars in assistance, because trade will create sustainable prosperity. Investment, because Afghanistan is a paradox. We're a rich country inhabited by poor people. 33% of our natural wealth is currently estimated between $1 and $3 trillion, and that's just touching the surface. We do provide the headwaters, and with every shift in the climate, our water becomes more valuable. Our land is the connecting area of all parts of Asia. All roads to Central and South Asia, in East Asia and West Asia, can potentially converge on us. So investment is crucial. We're very grateful for the type of investments, the big steps that China and India have taken, and I hope that others will follow, because that is a critical element of the future, and we are committed to creating that enabling climate. And then aid. We are grateful for the assistance, and we've partnered with you through the London conference framework, self-reliance, that Minister Hakimi will elaborate. the instruments for this platform are cooperation or bilateral, trilateral, and multilateral. Every problem cannot be solved through multilateral things. The fundamental building block is bilateral because we must solve those problems bilaterally that can be solved bilaterally. Those that need trilateral solutions will approach trilaterally. And those that require multilaterally will be solved through multilaterally. Because if we put everything in the basket of multilateral relationship, we would have to wait. And the key is to be able to move the process forward. The lapis lazuli route, that is likely to, that's very becoming eminently feasible, linking Afghanistan through Turkmenistan to Azerbaijan, to Turkey and Georgia, to Europe, and of course to Russia and Ukraine, is a fundamental example of this. Afghanistan economically now is very much part of the Caspian. 70% almost of our trade is likely to come through this route. 5 days to Europe, maximum 7 days depending on routes. We are not a landlocked country anymore. We are in the process of becoming a roundabout and bridge. Chabahar will be an extremely important event for us, and we are grateful to Iran and India for cooperating on this. And of course, we are looking to transformation in Karachi and the sets of relationship that would then enable us to have free movement all in multiple directions. And this is crucial. Measure is strength of bonds over short, medium, and long term. Our bonds might be weak initially, but they need to become stronger as part of a coherent strategy. If they're strong, we need to maintain them and expand them and modify them. Afghanistan as a platform of cooperation, I think, would provide an example as to how the new world, the new order that is globally possible, can shape by people and forces coming together rather than being disunited. We will never permit our soil to be used against anyone of our neighbors near or far. But we expect the same from all states, and that is crucial to regional stability. While that platform of cooperation is about vision and being guided by a vision of the future, our current reality is war. The last thing I wanted to become and to address you as was a war president. But that's what I am, and I'm proud to lead our armed forces. We will answer war with war. Let there be no ambiguity. On a daily basis, I take stock of our security forces, of their well-being, and of their orientation. We did not seek war. The war has been imposed on us. But we will overcome this war. Let there be no ambiguity. And my message to all people surrounding us, do not bet, do not wager on collapse of the Afghan state. We will not collapse. We have a 5,000-year history, and we are going to be here another 5,000 years. The resilience of our people should not be underestimated. All those who've invaded us in the past have misjudged the resilience of our people. And they've paid the price. Those who come in peace are welcomed with huge arms. But those who seek war will have an answer. We are past the point of ambiguity. This war is not against foreign forces. Foreign forces have left. This is a war to destabilize a democratically elected government, to deny people an opportunity. Second, we seek a twin peace. peace between Pakistan and Afghanistan, and peace between the Afghan government and armed political opposition. There's been an undeclared state of hostilities that our colleagues in Pakistan have acknowledged. That is the primary peace between states. I'm pleased with the nature of our discussions. This is going to require overcoming the legacies of the past. In order to win the future, we must overcome the past. But overcoming the future requires mutual movement, reinforcing a virtuous circle, because the threat of terrorism is a common threat to both Pakistan and Afghanistan and to the region. We must focus on this threat so that peace between two states can become an enduring phenomenon. And I'm pleased that Prime Minister Sharif, in his recent visit to Afghanistan, declared the enemies of Afghanistan to be the enemies of Pakistan, and that he would not permit Pakistani territory to be used. We need to see this translated into a program of action where sanctuary is denied and where material support and others. It is an extensive program, and we are in good discussions. The second is peace between the Afghan government and those who disagree with us politically. Every Afghan must be included. But when they declare war, they must know that there is no court. You cannot kill our children and expect us to hold flowers. What we arrive at negotiation table will be an enduring peace. This is a war of positioning. It is not a war of legitimacy. They want to position to seek better advantages. For God's sake, are our children's lives, our women's well-being, our future worth positioning? And if it's going to be positioning, we will deny you your positioning. Because we are seeking peace as a principle, not as a tactic. It's an enduring thing, and it needs to be matched. Our security layer, our approach to security is layered. First, we have 32,000 special forces that are among the very best in the world. So if people think that Kabul is going to collapse, or our major cities are going to collapse, or the state structure is collapsed, Minister Ulumi and his colleagues have news for you. No. This is not possible. We're enduring the sacrifices, but we're fighting. Second, we have 6 Army Corps Commands, now matched with 6 zones of the police, under them national police, and a variety, and finally local forces, the local police. There will be, like all wars, some movement back and forth. But what I like to seek your focus is the big picture. And then ask General Campbell where the resources of the armed opposition are matched or not. Yes, we do need more air support. I've been very clear about that, but this is a war where we can be confident of not collapsing and consolidating. Our armed forces have taken the initiative and simultaneously are fighting some surprises. But so far, keep our fingers crossed, so good. I'd like at this moment to express, again, gratitude for RSM and for the stability and flexibility of all of you regarding 2015. We had lost 8 months during 2014 where crucial decisions regarding transition could not be made because His Excellency President Karzai had made clear that he would not sign the bilateral security agreement and the status of forces agreement that were essential to planning. We have made up for those 8 months, but it's taken immense effort, and General Campbell and his team really need to be congratulated for the immense work that they've done with us, but I'd like to particularly thank the leadership of our armed forces. I'm pleased to announce that Minister Stanikzai will be our next Minister of Defense. So we will have the defense team in place with a new Chief of Army Staff and a first Vice Minister of the Ministry of Defense. Our crucial issue regarding air support is simple. A stitch in time will save 9. And we are working on it. Let me turn to political consensus. And I'll make just 4 points. First, overcoming the past. The Afghan political elite during the last 200 years has been the source of instability in this country. We could not get ourselves to consensus. Our quarrels destroyed the opportunities for our people because there were no coherence. The national unity government is an answer to this. It is an enduring phenomena. It is not accidental. It is not imposed. I'm very pleased with my working relationship with His Excellency Dr. Abdullah. We see eye to eye, but building consensus requires careful balance. Second, confidence in the future. The Cabinet of Afghanistan marks a social transformation, a phenomenal change in political outlook, and a generational change. 2 years ago, most Afghans would have thought that this type of cabinet would be inconceivable. Please have detailed discussions with cabinet members. We have found leaders who are going to lead this nation. They're not just managers, they're leaders because they will need to. But more significantly, the cabinet is becoming a body, a decision-making body, and it has arrived at a mechanism of working. Next week, the first 100-day plan of action from the cabinet is going to be launched. Every minister would have 1 hour to address the nation, and there would be a tight accountability framework. After the first 100-day action plan, we are going to pause for a month to take stock, and then launch our second 100-day action plan. I want to congratulate my colleagues in the cabinet for the immense discipline and creativity that they've brought. My only fear is that they may promise too much. So my request to them now is, and this would be very unusual from somebody like me, please promise half and deliver twice. Not the other way around. I asked Minister Rabbani that too, among others, as well as Mr. Ulumi. Thirdly, constitutionalism. This is key to us. What differentiates Afghanistan of 2015 from Afghanistan of 1842 or 1880 or 1992 is that now we have the domestic national rules of the game in place. It's the Constitution. The succession from President Karzai to myself is an immense tribute to the Afghan citizens. The rights and obligations of citizenship are embodied in the Constitution, so what is crystal is that we are not building personal rule. It is institutions of the state according to rule of law. And again, the national unity government, which was not on the phenomenon of which the Constitution was silent, shows our creativity within the rule of law, within the constitutional structure. Lastly, inheritance and legacy. Accountability and transparency of costs. I'll just give you one example. There was a fuel contract for the Ministry of Defense worth approximately $1 billion. And there were allegations of $100 million difference between two prices, we investigated. It brought, and of course we are punishing the culprits, we are dealing with them, but it brought the war to a halt. So we had to devise measures that were 50% good on accountability, but allowed us to continue. And second, reform has a lot of costs, and its advantages are born in the medium to long term. While the status quo has a lot of adherents. There's a cartoon, it says, I declared that there's no free lunch, and half of the government walked out. Yes, the period of free lunch is over, but you need to understand that there would be a lot of disquiet, and we need to deal with this. This is an inevitable part of the reform process, because when we say the word reform, we think it's just an overall positive phenomenon, not for those entrenched stakeholders. People who have stolen hundreds of millions of dollars, people who have seized tens of thousands of hectares of land, who are engaged in smuggling, narcotics, etc. Reform is a sign of declaration of war. And we need to understand this, and we need your support with it, and the balancing between continuity of change. So because of this, I'd like to turn to sequencing and sustaining of reforms. First, where we have succeeded at the first layer of governance is at the central level. The cabinet is now led by creative and committed individuals, but the ministries are not reorganized. The ministries are legacies from Ottoman Empire, from which we were never a part, to various legacies coming. One of our most significant things in the cabinet every day is to devote at least 1 hour to rulemaking, re-examination of all the laws in relationship, and now to remove duplication between ministries. At least 40% of the dysfunctionality of the government is because of overlapping authorities. Then we are now tackling subnational governments. A new generation of governors are being appointed. Appointing a governor is a much more difficult task than appointing a minister. And this is crucial, but so in the second 100 days, we're going to focus on bringing cabinet and the governors together to articulate joint programs, so it can truly become national in scope. But provincial governance has immense problems. The first of it, which will shock you, a province has no legal definition. Neither does a district. The provincial governor is a direct representative of the president. Every head of department is a representative of a minister. There is no accountability from the department heads to the governor, or vice versa. None of our province has a budget. It's all centralized. So there are fundamental changes in national governance that will take place, which is important. The second area, which is crucial, is rule of law and justice. I will have the rare honor to appoint 5 judges of the Supreme Court. 2 this year, 3 next year. I've interviewed every single head of provincial court system, all 34 of them. And next week, I'll be turning, after the launching of the 100-day plan, to interview all the key justices in Kabul. Over 600 prosecutors are graduates of high school and cannot do elementary submission of cases. There was a consensus from all 34 judges that 60 to 90% of submissions by prosecutors did not meet the law. This is one of fundamental areas of our weakness, and corruption in the justice sector is a driver of conflict. But overhaul of this is going to require as much focus and attention as we had to do on the cabinet. And that's what we are committed to. Thirdly, electoral reform in parliamentary elections and then presidential elections. This is a must. We have a consensus on it. Technically, we can be fairly certain that the 2019 presidential election would meet all the critical requirements of accountability, transparency, from technology to rules to others. Parliamentary elections are a very difficult challenge because of legacy. We don't have electoral rolls, despite your generous expenditure of $1 billion is not resulted in a sustainable system. Multiple voting cards have been issued, et cetera, et cetera. That is key to get right. And this, next to conducting the war, it's extremely important that we reach consensus on feasible, what constitutes a feasible, incredible parliamentary election, and then a breakthrough from the past, from then on, and again, we invite your attention and support. Lastly, let me turn to market building. This phrase should not come as a shock. The market is not a natural phenomenon. What passes for the market in England and in UK will be unrecognizable in Germany and vice versa. So there are models of the market. And our tragedy has been that in the last 13 years, we have not focused on a model that suits us. And that is our crucial challenge now. Our vision is to become an Asian roundabout. China's, India's, East Asia's, West Asia's, Central Asia's growth provides us a set of opportunities that are unprecedented for any country in conflict. And what we are focused on, and that's our challenge, and we seek again your partnership, we cannot just design a national economy. It must simultaneously focus on the regional and global dimensions. Without that, we will not have the prosperity that we seek. We will be, God willing, the largest producer of copper in the world, the largest producer of iron in the world, one of the most significant players in the gold market. We have 14 of the 17 rare earth material, etc. I can go on. But there are two stories. In 60 years, Congo's GDP is increased by 1 billion. Singapore's GDP, I think, is increased 200-fold. So natural resources are both an opportunity and a curse, but this is extremely important so that we can focus. Second, self-reliance. Minister Hakimi will speak more about this, but the key to us in terms of our contract with our citizens and with you, the international community, is to create a sustainable fiscal basis for the state. We are meeting our revenue targets despite the difficulties, and we are determined to expand them and shift. Key now is to grasp and harness our potential. Just look at one example. Afghanistan can generate at least 26,000 megawatts of electricity from our rivers. Power generation is not an area of dispute because the new system of run of the river avoids any international disputes. All the water that is taken is put back. Yet, the master plan that was drawn for us by consultants for the first 5 years recommended importing electricity for our urban centers rather than generating it. This is getting the cart and the horse backward. Afghanistan must become a producer, and it must harness this potential to be able to demonstrate the potential. I approved CASA 1000 in my first week in office, and I'm delighted that it's moving, but we need a lot more cooperation, particularly in terms of generation. Utilizing government purchasing power for building market efficiencies is key to us. The government's purchase constitutes 18% of the GDP. It had totally been washed away by corruption and by lack of focus. We must bring government expenditure and link it to the pockets of the people. We've had more meetings on wheat as a national priority than in the last 36 years combined. Our import bills are a scandal. We import $2 billion of meat and milk products and $1 billion of wheat. This country, how will it be able to sustain? So it's extremely important to do this. And then leadership is not about vision, it's about really dealing with the boring. Dr. Abdullah and I have the honor that every Saturday we sit from 3 to 5 hours reviewing every single contract as part of the National Procurement Board. In 6 weeks, we've saved over 20 million directly and hundreds of millions of dollars in terms of future. Leadership needs to connect back to the boring, to the routine, to the detailed, so that systems can be created. Let me conclude first, again, with a thank you, but with some voices. Yaya Khil, our children were playing volleyball. Yaya Khil is in Paktika. I went to condole. A man who'd lost 7 members of his family got up and said 2 things. One, we have an iron will. Let it not be confused. We will never bend to force or to terror. Just give us the very primary means of defending ourselves, and we will defend this land. Second, he said, we want the enduring peace. We want enduring peace. The peace of the pen. The peace where our children are educated. Where they become, Paktika has immense natural potential, including vast fields of gas. To lead those so that not they are workers, but they are leaders and managers. Istiqlal School is just a stone's throw away from you. A children's orchestra composed of orphan children was performing a play against the horrors of war. And a suicide bomber blew up some of the people, including a German citizen for whom I've expressed our condolences, who just needed a break from his very demanding job at the Ministry of Mining. These children are performing. Their leader was a professor in Australia. He came back, and despite the fact that he's wounded, he is not leaving to go back to his professorship in Australia. He is proud to lead this orchestra because those children are the voice of the future and the hope of the future. The discourse of rights has become a global right. We talk about all kinds of rights. We Afghans want to simplify it. We want to be able to breathe. We want to be able to move, and we want to plan the future. Thank you for your partnership, thank you for your commitment, and thank you for your sacrifices.